Once you have finished your paper mache and it is dry, it's time to start mapping out the background colors of our sculpture. So you're going to take your pencil and you're going to draw out where you are going to have color changes for your sculpture. So if we look at my sketch here, my background colors would be my skin tone, it would be the brown for the hair and the boots, it would be the orange shirt, and it would be the blue for the jeans. So right now I'm taking my pencil and I'm sketching out on my hero where those would go. Now, here you will see me draw the details. I would recommend not doing that because when I went and I painted my hero, the background colors, I ended up painting over all those details, and so I wasted that time. But I would definitely draw a pencil line where you plan to have the colors change on your backgrounds or the large areas of color, and I would not add any details at this time with your pencil. When you are ready to start painting, you're going to pour out the colors that you will need to make the colors that you want for your background colors. So I decided to start with my orange background color for the shirt, and then I will pour out more colors when I'm ready for other areas. Once I had the orange that I wanted, I tested out the color on my sculpture, and what I found was that it was too see-through and that it wasn't intense enough with the paper mache color. So I decided to start with a layer of white first, and then once the white was dry, then I decided to go over and paint over the white with orange. So if you're working with a lighter color like yellows, oranges, you might want to do a layer of white first in order to help your color stand out more against the paper mache color. I wanted to let the white dry completely before I painted the orange of the shirt, so I decided to work in another area that didn't touch the white paint. And so I decided to go with the hair color. So I started by making orange first, and then I added different amounts of black and red to it until I got the brown color that I wanted. Remember, as you are mixing your colors, you can test them out on a piece of scrap paper or even test them on your sculpture and then just wipe them off if they're not quite right. So a couple of reminders about how to paint neatly. Start with a small brush. Make sure you don't have a ton of paint on the brush. Wipe off any excess paint on your paint palette. You're going to use the small brush to outline around the edges where the paint color changes to a different color, so that way you have a nice neat edge. You're going to work slowly. Use the tip of the brush. Don't press it so it's flat and all the bristles spread out. You'll have more control if you're just using the tip of the brush. Again, go slowly and outline the area first, and then once you have the edges nice and neat, then you can switch to a larger brush and fill in the bigger areas more quickly. Remember, sometimes it will take 2 coats of paint in order for the paint to look solid and to completely cover the paper mache. So if you get done with 1 layer of paint and you feel like it looks a little see-through, you might go back over it once it's dry with a second coat. When you're done with an area and you're waiting for the paint to dry, look and see if there's another area that you can paint that isn't touching anything. So for this, I decided to move to the boots and paint them brown. So I mixed a different brown, and then I worked in that area while I waited for the hair and the white of the shirt to dry. Finally, the white was dry enough, I decided to paint the blue of the jeans. I mixed a little bit of blue and black together to make it a darker shade of the color. And then again, I used a small brush to outline right next to the white of the shirt. I started by the shirt first to allow the boots to dry a little bit more before I painted right next to them. You want to make sure that one area is dry before you paint next to it, otherwise that color could mix into your other color and change the color that you are painting. Remember, when you are painting, you do need to mix several colors. They should not come directly out of the bottles. So notice how I made a shade of blue jeans versus just using the blue from the bottle. You also want to make sure that you are painting your entire sculpture. The only area that shouldn't be painted would be where you still see the metal with your name and hour on it. Otherwise, all of the other areas should be covered. Again, remember, it might take a couple of coats of paint to get it to be the color that you want or to make the color look solid. So here with the blue jeans, I ended up doing a second coat to make them look the way that I wanted. Finally, the white of the shirt was dry, so I decided to go ahead and paint the orange. Now, one of the things that I ran into was that the blue wasn't completely dry, and I ended up having some blue paint sneak up into the orange. Luckily, I was able to clean my brush and prevent it from smearing into the orange, but that's something to be careful about if you're painting in two areas right next to each other. Be careful that you don't put the tempera paint on too thick onto your hero, because what will happen is the paint will crack and there's not a whole lot that we can do to fix it. So it's better to do thinner layers and do more layers than glob the paint onto your project. And this is what my hero looks like with all of the background colors painted. In our next video, we will go over how to add our details over the background colors.